Welcome to Political Sin. So this video, I want to talk about the voter registration. So if you are a Republican or if you're someone that wants Donald Trump to win, and I'm someone that is going to be voting for Donald Trump, I don't think he's the best candidate. I don't think he's the guy I would have picked over, let's say I probably would have voted for Andrew Yang if he got the nominee, but I'll be voting for Donald Trump. I voted for Jill Stein in 2016. Didn't know anything about Jill Stein, but this year I'm more well informed. I really want to understand the process of voting, voter registration, how much the polling matters. I'm trying to figure out all these things. And if you guys have been following the channel, and this is your first rodeo of an election where you're really invested into politics and want to figure out the whole process of a democracy, of how it all works, you guys are going to be learning with me. It's articles like these that kind of give us, it sheds more light on what's actually happening and why Democrats should be a bit afraid. Because let's just read the title of this article a little bit. Republicans see bright spot in 2020 voter registration push. The Republican Party has cut into Democrats' advantage in voter registration tallies across some critical presidential battleground states, a fact they point to as evidence of steady and overlooked enthusiasm for President Donald Trump and his party. So I don't think people are really dismissing how much people are really excited to vote for Donald Trump. If you guys, a lot of people claim to be, I'm objective, I'm not biased, I can see on either side. But if you are objective and if you followed conservatives or if you followed Trump supporters, you will understand that these people are super excited. If you see any of the rallies, people are really excited to go out, support Donald Trump, support someone that's not part of the old establishment. Has someone in there that's actually done things like not start wars and stuff. So it's all these things like, okay, if you are part of the black community and then you've seen that Donald Trump, who is supposedly a racist, passed something like the First Step Act, which helps, decrease mass incarceration, that type of thing. This is the enthusiasm over maybe his personality, enthusiasm over policies like peace in the Middle East, Israel and UAE, is these things that really get me excited. Like, wow, I'm someone that I care less about the personality. I care more about the policy. Like, how does it really affect my life? And so looking at Joe Biden and looking at Donald Trump is kind of like night and day of what they've done, especially in the past 4 years. I'm not someone that supports every single thing that Trump does or he says. He says a lot of dumb things. He says a lot of things where I smack my face. Like, why are you saying these things? He really does hurt himself a lot. But going back to voter registration in this article, and what's interesting is a lot more people are actually registering as Republicans. And what that really is telling us is Republicans, people that are voting or registering as Republicans, the article really states that, look, people that register as, in a party is telling you that they are more enthusiastic to vote this way. Because I myself actually register as an independent. I'm not party affiliated, but I will be voting for Donald Trump. So let's go through a little bit of the article. Republicans see their progress signing up voters in Florida, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and other states as a rare bright spot. Democrats appear to have been set back by their decision to curb in-person voter registration drives during much of the pandemic. In something of a reversal, Republicans are crowing, I'm not sure how to say that word, about their success bringing in new voters who could ramp up turnout and deliver the White House to their candidate. Okay, so what we do know is, about like 40%, I could be off a little bit there, but like about 40% of the population doesn't actually vote. So if they're signing up, the key thing to point to here is the amount of new voters, people that haven't been voting, that are signing up. And so I think that is the advantage that Republicans have as Donald Trump as their candidate. if this is some old like establishment GOP candidate, that is not someone that to be excited for. Because it's Donald Trump, you have this guy, this fireball of a guy who just talks crap and doesn't he just says way too many things that he doesn't need to say. But he's really out there, and this, if you take out the personality out of it and just stick to the policies, and that is my biggest what matters the most to me. You just look at the policies, look at their administration, they didn't do that bad of a job. In certain areas, they actually did a really good job in. And things like the economy, like this is where one of those things where having a businessman as the president is actually beneficial to us as citizens, as a worker, as an entrepreneur. These are things that get you excited. Like, wow, this is something great to be a part of. That is part of what capitalism is. You know, decreasing, like low taxes. Yes, that's great. You know, just because you increase taxes doesn't mean you increase the tax revenue. So let's move on here. In Florida, Republicans netted 146,644 voters over Democrats since the pandemic hit in March, leaving Democrats with their smallest overall lead in party registrations since the state began tracking them in 1972. Now, that is quite incredible that they have to go all the way back to 1972. That's like almost Reagan era, Jimmy Carter era. That's pretty significant. That this enthusiasm to vote for Trump, like this is a real thing over what the polls like. I'm trying to figure out right now, guys, like how do people poll people? Because if they're only polling the registered voters, that makes a lot of sense. But if they're polling people that are not registered voters and they're just pointing who they would vote for, that's a bit different than the actual people coming out to vote. And so one number that I want to take a look at, this right here, guys, is significant. This right here. Even as society has opened back up since March, registrations are 38% lower than they were during a comparable stretch in 2016, according to a report from the Brennan Center for Justice. Experts note that a registration drop-off of that size disproportionately hurts young urban minority voters that tend to lean Democratic. Okay? So if you follow any part of history, you know the argument against Republicans, voter suppression, voter IDs, voter suppression. This if that all reigns true in terms of having 38% registered voters less than it was in 2016 during this time period, if these votes would tend to go Democratic, this really hurts Democrats. So the pandemic itself is looking like it's actually hurting Democrats. And by not making people go in person to go vote, that is looking like it's hurting Democrats too. So this is really interesting. And a person like Joe Biden, like if you've seen any of his rallies, no one goes to Joe Biden's rallies. We've seen recently a whole rally for women's rights and all that. No one really complained about the coronavirus and stuff like that. Even Dr. Fauci, he did not comment on that being a super spreader. It's quite funny. I'm not negative towards Dr. Fauci or anything at all. I think they politicize him. That's very unfair for him. He's one opinion. He's someone that we should look to for advice, but he's not the ultimate person that we should look to. We need to look at the whole science community as a whole and make the best decision possible. But let's go back to this article about voter registration. So it's looking like voter registration says 30% down. So that is looking like it's hurting Democrats. 2, it's looking like more people are registering as Republicans over all these key states like Pennsylvania, Florida, and other states, swing states that really, really matter. So this is not, I think this is why maybe Republicans or maybe the Trump campaign is really still feeling pretty good about themselves, because the polls, as we've seen from 2016, it doesn't matter that much. He's still within striking distance in the polls. But voter registrations, in terms of like people signing up, the enthusiasm for Donald Trump, it's almost like a no-brainer to me. I've seen it. My Twitter is heavily conservative now of who I follow. And so I see people retweeting all the time. I see this huge amount of people getting likes over their enthusiasm for Trump. You see it out in the streets of people with their signs and all that good stuff in the boats or whatever. I think Democrats are in a little bit of trouble right now. Democrats were starting ahead of Republicans. They've had success registering new voters through much of the Trump administration. Their gains after Trump's election helped lead to their success, flipping the House of Representatives in an election with record young voter participation rates, a sign they argued that their pre-pandemic work will pay off in November. Since the outbreak, things have been harder for Democrats and the wide array of nonprofit groups that work to sign up new voters. These organizations have been hesitant to resume face-to-face interactions. The Biden campaign only resumed some this month, while Republicans have not been as shy. They began going back into the field this summer. In Arizona, online registration efforts don't have the same impact as in-person ones. So it looks like in Arizona, while we're seeing an increased number in online participation, it's still not the same as face-to-face work and being able to have a conversation with a person. In Arizona, I've seen like Trump actually have a couple rallies. He just had a rally in Arizona the other day. I think Arizona, that's just my opinion. I think they're going red, but let's just move on. They didn't really say too much there. Okay, they're just saying that, there's 66,000 voters added to the roll since August, and they are younger, and they're key, which is a key Democratic demographic. But there's another poll that I've seen that actually a lot of younger black voters are signing up to vote for Donald Trump. So I guess you have to kind of dive deeper into that. In Pennsylvania, Republicans have been steadily gaining on Democrats since Trump's election. Democrats in the state acknowledge the president has a striking appeal to many longtime members of their party who may be switching to the GOP. Donald Trump is a singular, unique personality, said John Fetterman, the state's Democratic lieutenant governor. Fetterman noted that despite the attrition in registration numbers, Democrats won the state Senate and gubernatorial races in 2018. I'm not really concerned by the voter registration difference. So, in Pennsylvania, more people are registering as Republicans. I seen a video where it was like 180,000, around 189,000 or whatever, new Republican registered voters compared to like 80, 90,000 newly registered Democrat voters. So that's something interesting to note. I mean, Pennsylvania, another key swing state, is probably going to come down the stretch. In Nevada, where Democrats routinely out-register Republicans in the run-up to elections, the GOP has bested Democrats for at least 5 months since the pandemic hit. In North Carolina, where a competitive Senate race could determine which party controls the upper chamber, Republican registration has leapt by over 51,000 over Democratic since mid-March. In Florida, Democrat Hillary Clinton lost the state when her party's registration advantage was more than 320,000 in 2016. It's now about half of that, but Democrats note that there's been an even larger increase in new voters who declined to register with either party. Okay, so what we do know is more people are registering as Republicans in Florida. So this new crop of people that are registering as new voters in Florida, we don't know for sure where they're going to vote. So that doesn't really tell us anything, okay? So Steve McHale, a veteran Florida Democrat strategist who's complained publicly about his party's failures to keep up with the GOP in registrations, said during a call with reporters Monday that those unaffiliated voters are overwhelmingly young and people of color. That's probably a good sign, said McHale, who also runs a group supporting Biden. Okay, so I guess in Florida, a lot of people are these young unaffiliated voters who are overwhelmingly young and people of color. And, we know like 88% of black voters voted for Hillary Clinton 2016. But it's actually very important to note that Florida has a big Cuban population as well, and Cubans are actually more supportive of Donald Trump. And like I said earlier about this, I think it was a Gallup poll that more younger African Americans, males, are signing up to vote for Donald Trump. Is more signing up more to be voting for Republican. So this is going to be a very interesting election. Of course, if you're voting for Trump, you want him to win, and you want Republicans to win, then this is a good sign. This tells us that it's actually a lot closer than what the polls are showing, which we already know this by 2016. So it's very key to pay attention to these swing states because they're the ones that matter, right? They're the ones that are going to flip the election, and it's going to be a very, very small margin of error. I hope me covering this article has really shined a light on maybe how potentially the voter registration, by signing more people up, can be a positive sign. The article also notes that, there isn't a science to this, that each state is a bit different on their process. So I guess we'll really find out, but it can't be a bad thing that Republicans are outnumbering Democrats for voter registration. And, I appreciate you guys out in the video there. I appreciate you guys watching the video. Like the video, comment what you think. And, we all die, live the life you want to live. But if you don't like the world you live in, you got to do something about it. So let's do something about it. I'll see you guys on the next one.